Picture this. You're trapped on a wooden ship in the middle of winter. The temperature is below freezing. Ice covers every surface. There's no heating system, no insulated walls, and absolutely no way off this floating prison for months. How would you survive? Medieval pirates faced this nightmare regularly. And somehow, they didn't just survive. They found ways to sleep, stay warm, and wake up alive the next morning. But here's the crazy part. They did it using techniques so clever that even modern survival experts are impressed. So how did they pull it off? The answer is going to surprise you. Before we dive in, hit that like button and subscribe if you want more historical deep dives like this. Now let's get into it. Let me set the scene. It's midnight on a pirate ship somewhere in the North Atlantic during the 1400s. The deck is covered in frost, so thick you can hear it crunch under your boots. The air is cold enough to freeze your eyelashes shut. Below deck, dozens of men are crammed into a space barely bigger than your living room, trying to sleep in conditions that would kill most people today. The sails are frozen solid. The ropes are stiff as iron. And here's what really messes with your head. There's no escape, no calling for rescue, no hopping in a warm car and heading home. You're stuck on this wooden coffin for months, and the ocean temperature is literally below freezing. So the question becomes, what did these pirates know that we don't? Here's where it gets interesting. Pirates accidentally discovered something that modern survival experts now teach. The human body is a furnace. We're talking about 100 watts of heat per person, constantly radiating outward. One person alone in the cold? That heat disappears fast. But pack 50 people into a confined space. You've just created a biological heating system. The solution? Hammocks that moved with the ship instead of against it. When the vessel tilted, the hammock tilted. When it rolled, the hammock rolled. You were essentially suspended in mid-air, cradled by physics itself. And here's the kicker. They hung these hammocks so close together they were touching. You could literally reach out and touch 3 other sleeping men without moving. Why? Body heat sharing. Every hammock was essentially a thermal node in a larger heating network. Privacy was non-existent. Personal space was a fantasy. But you know what? You also didn't freeze to death. Okay, so you're packed in like sardines. There's a cow breathing below you, and the ship is rocking violently. How do you actually fall asleep in that chaos? Pirates developed psychological tricks that modern sleep researchers would recognize. They used rhythmic humming and low singing to create a sonic environment that masked the threatening sounds of the storm. The tune would pass from hammock to hammock, each person adding their voice until the entire lower deck was humming the same melody. It wasn't music, it wasn't prayer, it was a primitive form of what we now call sound masking, or white noise generation. And here's what blows my mind. Their bodies adapted. The constant rocking that would make you and me violently seasick became their trigger for sleep. Modern sleep studies show that gentle, predictable motion activates the vestibular system in ways that promote deep sleep. Pirates accidentally discovered this centuries before science could explain it. But the cold still found ways in. So what did they do about that? Their clothing strategy was brutal but effective. Pirates wore whatever they could steal, trade skast med seit, or gavasis. We're talking about wool directly against the skin, which stays warm even when wet. Then linen, then heavy canvas or hide coats on the outside. But here's where it gets wild. They wore literally anything that could trap heat. Historians have found records of pirates wearing stolen priests' robes, women's skirts torn up and re-sewn into cloaks, even tapestries wrapped around their bodies. There was zero shame, zero concern about how ridiculous they looked. Warmth was the only currency that mattered. And get ready for this gross but genius technique. Northern pirate crews rubbed seal fat on their exposed skin before sleep. The blubber created a waterproof, insulating layer that trapped body heat and prevented frostbite. The smell? Absolutely horrific. But it worked so well that Arctic explorers centuries later used the exact same method. In the deepest part of the ship, pirates maintained what they called the heart, a small ember glowing inside a bowl of sand. This wasn't just for warmth, it was symbolic. If the ember died, superstition said the ship was doomed. Men took turns through the night keeping it alive, adding tiny pieces of wood or tar, nursing it like their lives depended on it. Because honestly, their lives did depend on it. That ember could restart fires for cooking, provide emergency light, and serve as a psychological anchor in the darkness. The ship's heart represents something deeper about pirate survival. They understood that morale was as important as warmth. Now here's something most pirate movies get completely wrong. These men slept with knives, pistols, and cutlasses within arm's reach. Not because they feared naval attacks, but because they feared each other. Think about it. You're trapped on a ship with dozens of criminals, thieves, and murderers. Resources are scarce. Everyone's cold, hungry, and desperate. The only thing preventing chaos is mutual exhaustion. Some pirates literally tied their weapons to their belts before sleeping so nobody could steal them in the night. Imagine that. You're so paranoid that even unconscious, you keep your cutlass attached to your body. That was normal life at sea. Despite the violence and mistrust, pirates kept small tokens that reveal their humanity. A carved piece of coloured glass worn around the neck, a seashell tied with string, crude carvings in the wooden beams near their hammocks, prayers or protection symbols. And then there's the ship's cat. This wasn't a pet, it was essential crew. Cats controlled the rat population that could destroy food stores and chew through critical ropes. But more importantly, the presence of a living, warm, purring creature provided psychological comfort that's hard to quantify. Records show that some crews treated their ship's cat with near religious reverence. Sailors believed the cat could sense storms before they hit. If the cat acted strangely, men prepared for weather. If it purred contentedly, they relaxed. Modern psychologists would call this a comfort animal. Pirates just knew it kept them sane. Let's talk about what these guys actually ate, because it's honestly shocking they survived at all. Hardtack biscuits. These things were so hard, they could literally break teeth. They'd last for months without spoiling, which was great, except eating them was like chewing rocks. Pirates would soak them in rum or seawater just to make them edible. Salted beef preserved in barrels with so much salt that it had to be soaked overnight before cooking. Even then, it was basically leather. The salt content was so high that some crews mixed rum with seawater to stretch their alcohol supply, creating grog, which made thirst worse, but was easier on frozen throats. When fresh water froze solid, they'd melt ice in their mouths. When food ran low, they'd catch rats and cook them. This wasn't adventure. This was borderline starvation. Here's the nightmare scenario. You need fire to cook food and create warmth. But fire on a wooden ship surrounded by tar and dry rope is basically a death trap waiting to happen. One spark in the wrong place and the entire vessel burns to the waterline in minutes. So pirates used controlled, minimal fires in stone hearths, carefully watching them 24/7. They'd heat stones or sand in iron pots and use those as portable heat sources, medieval hot water bottles that didn't risk burning down the ship. The cook was one of the most important people on board. Not because the food was good, it wasn't, but because he managed fire without killing everyone. When night fell, rum became everything. It numbed pain from frostbite. It created the illusion of warmth by dilating blood vessels, even though it actually made you lose heat faster. It was currency, medicine, and the only thing standing between some men and total despair. But it was also dangerous. Unlike naval crews with strict rations, pirates drank without limits. Fights would break out. Men would make stupid decisions. Some would fall overboard and freeze before anyone noticed. The rum paradox, it kept morale up, but discipline down. Now, here's something most people don't realize. Pirates barely slept. The watch system meant men rotated shifts every few hours. A bell would ring, and half the crew would stumble on deck while the other half collapsed into hammocks. Historians estimate pirates got maybe 3 to 4 hours of sleep per day during active voyages, and even less during storms. This wasn't straight sleep either. It was fragmented across the day and night. Modern sleep research shows that chronic sleep deprivation causes hallucinations, paranoia, and impaired judgment, which explains a lot about pirate behavior. Honestly, these guys were operating on so little rest that their grip on reality was probably pretty shaky. During major storms, forget about sleep entirely. Everyone was on deck, fighting for their lives. Waves would slam against the hull. Ice would form on the rigging, adding deadly weight. Men would climb frozen ropes with bare hands to prevent the mast from collapsing. The survival rate during winter storms was terrifyingly low. Ships would disappear and never be heard from again. But for those who made it through, something interesting happened. After storms, after the chaos settled, pirates did something crucial. They huddled together, not out of affection, but necessity. 2 men would share a single cloak. Groups would sit with shoulders touching, passing a flask around. This is what modern survival experts now teach. In extreme cold, group body heat sharing can mean the difference between life and death. Pirates figured this out through trial and error, losing crew members until they learned what worked. The irony is beautiful. These were violent criminals who distrusted each other completely. Yet survival forced them into cooperation. They had to work together, sleep near each other, and share warmth, or everyone died. What kept them alive wasn't bravery or toughness. It was the simple biological fact that humans are warmer together than apart. Could you handle even one night on a medieval pirate ship in winter? You'd be packed with 50 unwashed criminals and a cow. Temperature barely above freezing. Sleeping in a hammock touching 3 others. Dinner would be rock-hard biscuits and leather beef. No bathroom, no privacy, no escape. You'd wake every 3 to 4 hours for watch duty, climbing frozen rigging in darkness with numb hands. Most modern people wouldn't last 48 hours. Medieval pirates weren't superhuman. They didn't have special genetics or cold resistance. They were ordinary people who survived through cooperation, adaptation, and stubborn refusal to die. They understood something we've forgotten in our heated homes. Humans are incredibly adaptable. The techniques they used, group sleeping, layered clothing, body heat sharing, psychological rituals, aren't historical curiosities. Arctic explorers and survival experts still use them today. Pirates accidentally pioneered cold weather survival techniques that science later validated. When you're fighting to survive winter at sea, gold means nothing. The real treasure was warmth, companionship, and waking up alive. Pirates who survived didn't talk about raids or plunder. They talked about nights they made it through. storms they weathered, men who kept them warm when cold tried to kill them. That's survival, not glorious, not romantic, just stubborn human endurance, one frozen night at a time. Next time your house is a little cold, remember, people slept in hammocks, next to cows, on frozen ships, and somehow they made it work. If this blew your mind, hit that like button and subscribe for more insane survival stories from history. Drop a comment with what you want covered next. And stay warm, because now you know just how good you've got it.